Hello, and thanks for being such a wonderful company at this time every Sunday as you join us on your channel of choice, Africa Independent Television AIT. This is the signature show. I am Mwabweze Njoku. Now, the anxiety over the rescheduled presidential and National Assembly elections has abated. The elections have been won and they have been lost. Some of our National Assembly members will return, others will not. President Muhammadu Buhari has been given a mandate to steer the affairs of this country for the next 4 years. Are we to congratulate him? Yes, congratulations, Mr. President. But let us add, may your road be rough. This is not original to us. We took it from elder statesman, accomplished educationist, moralist, Dr. Taishulari of blessed memory. And may we tell the president where those rough roads will lead to. The roads that are so rough will lead to our ruined education system, which he needs to fix with his team. Our unperforming economy, which he must address. Security challenges, which we must say here he's done very well in tackling, but which is still creating very deep social schisms. He needs to be a little more thorough to accept the several dimensions to these security challenges and address them. He must look at the road leading to a very unfortunate political culture that is creating deep divides among our people. Development in this country is creating the gulf that is so deep between the haves and the have-nots, the rich and the poor. And governance that seems so far removed from the real people, to the extent that some of us in this country do not even feel that there are governments, federal, state, or local. And let me add, for good measure, please, a northern Nigeria that is in need of a Marshall Plan. The president has his basket of challenges full. Rough roads. We wish him, at the end of the next 4 years, a smoother ride. Now, as the president chews on these challenges, the governorship and state assembly elections are just 6 days away from today. And the Independent National Electoral Commission and the police say that they are ready for those elections. But is INEC really ready to address the challenge of unperforming card readers? Is INEC ready to address the challenge of ballot box snatching and ballot paper burning that we saw in the last elections? Is INEC ready, in collaboration with the police, to address the very fraudulent thumbprinting that has gone viral? These are real challenges. No matter how we play with percentages of performance, these challenges put doubt into the credibility of our elections. Now, is the police in Lagos State ready to address the challenge of voters who have already been given advance notice not to near the polling units because they could put their lives in jeopardy? Is the police ready to address traders who have been told that if they ventured to the polling stations because the party or candidate they could have sympathy for are already known, that their businesses will be ruined? Is the police ready to address these challenges? If these challenges are realistically addressed, the governorship and state assembly elections will be a wonderful political experience to have. Then we have governors, state assembly members who actually represent the people. Now, the Supreme Court has fixed May 17 as the date to give judgment in the case instituted by the Cross River State government against the federal government over the suspension of Walter Onnoghen as the Chief Justice of Nigeria. Interesting. Just let us do some thinking. Just in case the Supreme Court finds merit in that case and reverses the position of the federal government, what is likely to happen? All the cases arising from the presidential and National Assembly elections, will they be impacted by such a reversal? Please, don't mind me. Just don't mind me. I've been warned by Charles Dickens, who said, ask no questions and I'll be told no lies, please. I'm just being mischievous. No. I'm not being mischievous. I'm just trying to look at events that happened in the past 7 days, just some of them. You don't forget that last Sunday, we could not bring you this program. That was because, as Igbos say, when you see what is more important than the band, you just sell off the yams. You know, the presidential and National Assembly elections were a little more important national issues, so please, we had to sell off the yam or the signature show. But our hands are full this Sunday. There's so much catching up to do. And so we're going to bring you a special report, bumper. Of course, juicy interview. And don't forget that the last 15 minutes of this program is devoted to corruption theory. All you need to do is stay tuned. Remain with us. We shall be back very shortly.
It will be a fundamentally significant political experience in Nigeria if the judiciary overturns the results of the presidential election, which has handed the second time in office to Muhammadu Buhari of the All Progressives Congress. The opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP, refused to sign the results announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, at the conclusion of the collation of results on Tuesday night into the early hours of Wednesday morning. The party and its candidate, Atiku Abubakar, are collating evidence that many things which undermine the fairness and credibility of the election went wrong. They say they are heading to the court to challenge the outcome of the presidential election. But there are issues and trends which seem not to be in contention, at least as testified to by voters, foreign and local observers, and journalists. In canvassing for votes from the Igbo community in Lagos, national leader of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, created a social divide of us and them. He told the Igbo community that they have been enjoying our free education, scholarships, and social amenities without discrimination. According to him, it was time to pay back. Those may not be his exact words, but the impact of that "our and them" was a clear divide which seemed to replay the same line of thought which the Oba of Lagos expressed in 2015 when he threatened to chase Igbos out of Lagos if they did not vote APC.
For us, we should not start a wrong narrative. It is not a crime. You did not choose the parent or the tribe you came from. It just happened that you were born from that tribe. So those who are preaching, the separatists or people who are divisionists, who are looking at one tribe to the other, they are making a big mistake. The true development is when a people see themselves as one, irrespective of where they come from.
I see that's something we should all condemn. Any Nigerian can live anywhere. An Igbo man can live in the north, a Northerner can live in the east, a Yoruba man can live in the east, so any Nigerian can live anywhere. And if you actually said so, which I believe, I doubt, I will use this medium to condemn such statement.
there is a diminutive perspective towards them, you understand? From the onset, APC, Lagos has been an APC state from the onset. So there is nothing like tribalism or any other thing there. So it has to do with one Nigeria perspective.
This social divide, which politicians create among the population in order to achieve a political end, seems to have gone beyond rhetorics. In Lagos, for instance, thugs and political ordains visited unimaginable violent parts of Lagos where they perceived that the electorate would not vote for the ruling elite. Also in Nasarawa, Kano, and Plateau states, challenges arose in sections of the state where the opposition had strong advantage. To attribute this trend to mere manufacturing of the card readers, unfortunate late arrival of electoral materials, or the coincidental presence of violent phone thugs will amount to playing the ostrich and living in Dentra.
What do we do so that those incidences will not repeat itself? It's by the way of solution. The first thing is, don't start with the presidential election. Start with the least election, local government. From local government, is not unified. Everybody is focused on the domestic, the local politics. After that, take the state election, state assembly, and let the last one be the presidential election. We did that in 1999. There was no issue. When military conducted the election, civilian conducted it in 2003. There was no issue. But since we reversed the order of election, then we started having issue.
It would appear, therefore, that it is the desperation and divisive manipulations of the political elite and not any real ethnic or religious factors that creates tension, which always accompanies Nigerian political process and bring the nation to the precipice. Samson Orimoloye, reporting for Signature News.
Well, thank you very much for still staying with us on the Signature Show. It's now the segment for our conversation. And I'm very excited, really, to have in the studio Tope. Yes, Tope Fasua essentially is an economist. But in the current dispensation, Tope is also the presidential candidate, Abundant Nigeria Renewal Party. Tope was their presidential candidate in the just concluded presidential election. So he left economics to try and look at governance and leadership of the Nigerian nation. Tope, let me welcome you to the Signature Show.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir.
You and I have seen through this presidential and National Assembly elections. What was your feel of it? What did you get from it?
Well, the campaigns leading to the elections were quite exciting. For me, it was about, getting to know what Nigeria is about, getting to know the nooks and crannies of Nigeria, getting to know the people, to understand them and all of that. Getting to see different cultures, and also the vastness of Nigeria, the diversity, when you look at it. Nigeria, there are some places you go to right now, it's really pretty hot. And there are some places you go to, it's quite cold, So I said, well, this is a great country. It's just like you have the United States where you have places in Alaska where it's really cold almost all year. And then you have places in Southern California where you even have deserts, within the United States. And that's what it's about. Then the election proper, for the first time, well, in my life, I was on the ballot for whatever that was worth, It wasn't about queuing to go and vote for someone. It was queuing to vote for myself and also convincing other people to vote for me. And it was about the idea that I was selling to say, I came in from the deep end of the water. And I was pushing ideas that were a little bit difficult to sell because it required that people should be quite educated, a bit deep, in order to appreciate that, look, this guy is saying the right thing and all of that. But it was going to be worth the effort, whatever the case may be. So the election, I participated in it. It was quite good. It was quite, in my area, it was peaceful. Of course, later on we heard about deaths here and there and a lot of skirmishes in one or two places around the country. Fortunately, a few people lost their lives. But it was quite interesting, I must say. And I think this election was crucial in many ways because for some reason, people had added up to here. You know, people like the Americans will say, a lot of people felt they were sick and tired of being sick and tired, and so they needed a change by every means possible. And so the elections are still on. We're urging our people to be patient. We're urging our people to be peaceful, to conduct themselves properly, and to know that, look, at the end of the day, no politics is worth anybody's life. But it's a very crucial moment that we are in this country. Yeah, you can see of recent, the country started to hit the radar in the wrong way. You know, highest number of poor people, highest level of inequality, highest number of children out of school. I'm talking about in the world, highest number of maternal deaths during childbirth, highest number of children dying before they're 5. I'm talking about sheer numbers, not even ratios, you know. And so I think what this means is that whatever it is we know, or we have called governance over decades, have panned out in a negative manner for us. I think that governance, as practiced in Nigeria, has delivered negative outcomes, all right? Negative outcomes. Rather than building the country, the kind of governance we've had has kind of reduced the country and reduced the quality of human beings in the country. But it has actually, you know, I mean, I'm talking about on the average. Of course, it has created a certain set of nouveau riche people who have come into so much money they don't even know what to do with the money, and seems to be perpetuating that kind of new aristocracy or new feudalism, if you call it that. You know, a slave and master kind of relationship between those who are in politics and the rest of it.
Now, in the course of the campaign, did you get a feel that those running for power have begun to come to terms with some of these observations you made, some of the things you saw in the course of the campaign, the level of poverty, so that such things can drive not just the words they speak, but their thoughts and the presentations they make in the course of the campaign?
Well, thank you very much. I mean, your question actually brings up the fact that what we need in Nigeria is some sort of philosopher kingship, if you like. You know, when they say they have philosopher king, we don't just need mere administrator. We don't need someone who resumes there, who is forced to do one or two things routinely and so on. What we need is someone who can actually speak to the people and begin to get them to do things in a certain way. That means that, you know, I mean, of course, leadership to a large extent is broken into your visioning, into your communication, and also the ability to accept responsibility for what you do or for your outcomes of your actions or inactions. So visioning is actually very key. But communication, in terms of written communication, spoken communication, and of course, the 70% of communication is your body language. You know, that, what are you giving off? What kind of signals are you giving off? Are you giving off, you know, are you affecting people positively with energy? You know, are you affecting people, you know, with passion and all that? Are you able to get people to do stuff? You know, that's what we haven't got here, unfortunately. We've not got that charismatic kind of leadership. If you had one, you'd be shocked at how much transformation power you can have just in one kind of leadership like that. And that's why I actually went for the presidency, not for Senate. I didn't want to get lost in the Senate or in the House of Reps or even in the House of Assembly and so on. You know, some people have that vision. I don't. So to a large extent, I would say that going through all of this, I could confirm firsthand some of the fissions in this country, some of the divisions in this country. I could confirm firsthand the level of poverty and despondency in this country. And I could see also that many of the people who are leading right now, they don't care. However, why don't they care? Yesterday, I read in the news that somewhere in the Zamfara state, a certain senator or governor candidate who gave his house to some IDPs came back to eject all of them from his house because they voted for Buhari or someone, you know, and he said, these people are voting for, so get out of my house. So you have such situations coming up. So there are some instances where maybe people have tried and they feel betrayed, or they feel that that trying is useless. There's no point, you know, assisting these people. Let them be the way they are. That's, you know, that's the way they were born to do. And sometimes,
that should not be that.
And sometimes, exactly, and sometimes religion also comes in and justifies. You can actually open verses in one or two holy books and begin to see that, oh, some people were created to be poor, and oh, that's it. So I did not see on ground that those who are leading are taking cognizance of the level of poverty. Like we were discussing something recently, yes. And you said that, look, a certain part of Nigeria is the way it is, even in 1957, when we postponed our independence. And that's 62 years on from now. Same reality, in fact, worse perhaps. Why? Because population has increased, okay? People are living a bit longer than they used to live then, because people are now open to, you know, better medicine, antibiotics, you know, little things that used to take people out now, you know, kind of, not because we tried, but because those things became available and cheaper, you know, and a little bit more awareness, you know. People get medicine in the hospital, whether they know what it is, they use it, you know, and all of that. We have actually inched up a little bit in the scheme of events in the global community. And now the other part of it is that even a lot of the new entrants, okay, who you would have expected us to document this the more. Many people went for the power, and I didn't go for the power. I felt that this is an opportunity for us to document Nigeria properly. And secondly, for us to also be able to, you know, to able to sell the ideas that we had, you know, so whatever ideas you had, whatever thing that was burning inside you and all of that, you needed to push it out there and see how far you could go. You know, I didn't see a lot of that.
You mentioned the passion of the leader and how such passion can create wide-ranging change. Absolutely. How a philosopher king can make a country move so fast because of his thoughts and his words. I want to draw attention to a speech that the national leader of the APC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, made to the old boys of King's College last year. I may not quote him word for word, but let me please paraphrase him. He did say that governance should not be a status symbol. It should not be an economic ladder. But it should be a means of taking cognizance of the challenges of the ordinary person. And at the end of which, that ordinary person would have felt, experienced a positive change. That such a development causes, I can't forget that word, a coalition that is not forced. In other words, a coalition of the convinced population. Having experienced good governance, you do not need to force people. To me, that speech was not just significant, but please pardon me to contrast this very speech with also the speech the same person made in the course of this electioneering. When he went to either Ojo or Okota area to solicit for vote for the APC, he did say that those people had been enjoying our free education and social services. It was now time for them to reciprocate and pay back. I did not like, I contrasted that first philosophical speech to King's College Old Boys and this soapbox speech. They tended to be incongruous. What do you think is the effect of this later speech on social relations, on harmony of the country, on even the outcome of the election which you took part in?
Right, thank you very much. I mean, those are the very serious things that you brought up. If you look at the first talk in King's College, and then the other one with residents of Ojo, probably a lot of them are traders down in Alaba, up to Lasu, all those places, you know, in Okota as well, we have a huge population of people from the southeast of the country. I used to live in that area before, so I know pretty much what goes on in this part, you know. So is it that he was speaking with the King's College guys, believing in his mind that these are intellectuals and, you know, these are people that could absorb the kind of high-level information he was giving them? And, you know, why is he talking down to these guys in Ojo as well, number one? And then one could also look at it that at what point did he leave the nationalism with which he spoke with these guys in King's College and then went into a tribal rat hole with these people in Ojo? You know, those are the issues. But let's go back to the speech in King's College.
Yes.
This is a very apt speech, you know, and very elevated speech. And I think we can't have more, we can't have too much of such, you know. That, you know, the essence of leadership is to lift everybody up. And look, at some point in time, I had a kind of tiff with Garba Shehu, who is the presidential spokesman up till now. When Buhari clocked 100 days in government a few years back, he wrote a very glowing speech about his principle. However, he ended that speech about that write-up by saying that Buhari is like Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore and Narendra Modi of India, only that he was better than them because he did not micromanage. And I felt, number one, it was impolitic and, of course, on what would you call it now, on diplomatic for you to write about leaders that are almost revered at the level of, you know, small gods in their country in that way. Especially, there's a reason why he said what he said, because if you look empirically on the ground, what do these two leaders stand for? Lee Kuan Yew is the man that came into a small archipelago called Singapore, which was seen as a backdoor little space and all of that, oppressed by Malaysia, Indonesia, and, you know, took this to the level because he was able to take the people from that level, which, you know, we're talking about, and he lifted them all up. And you know what? He got richer for it. Now, his son is still the Prime Minister of Singapore. And they've become a huge dynasty. And of course, people complain sometimes, why is it only the family? But hey, Singapore is one of the best countries in the world. You know, it's not so big anyway, but average income there, something in the region of $50,000. Nigeria is doing $2,000 or something, or even better. You know, I mean, Singapore is a little bit better than even $50,000. You know, so he was able to take that. But what did he do? He did, yes. So what they call micromanaging, meaning that he brought a vision to sell to the people to say, this is what I want our country to look like. This is what I want you to look like. Right? This is how I want you to live. I've read enough of text in terms of how even people were resettled in Singapore from slum areas into livable quarters. There was a time, of course, they had a small space. It projected in the future that, look, the population is going to grow. What do we do? They started building high-risers. The people weren't used to living in high-risers. Sometimes they dump waste in there. Sometimes someone goes there and takes a leak or whatever, you know. It was a huge war. But today, I've been in the Singapore metro, you know, which has been around for more than 30, 40 years, peak and span. So unlike in parts of Europe where you see jobs will come in, spray all sorts of graffiti, put their legs on the chew gum and stick it around. You can't do that in Singapore. As a matter of fact, he banned chewing gum to say that he hated to see chewing gum stains on the ground. And, you know, it was a ban. When I went to Singapore in 2012 or thereabout, I made a mistake of popping a chewing gum. I had chewing gum on me, and I eventually got into a cab. You know, I was looking for a Nigerian restaurant. I couldn't find one. And after a while, my mouth was bitter. I've been walking around, and I thought, I have this chewing gum. Let me pop one. And then I got a cab eventually. And as we were going, the guy turned back and said, what kind of cologne you're wearing? Are you wearing a mint cologne? At that point in time, was when I remembered that, oh my God, chewing gum is banned in this country. So I stopped chewing. No. I just kind of papered over it. But I knew. So that's the kind of, now in Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew was the man, a leader who went on the street and swept with his people. The same thing for Narendra Modi. About 5-6 years ago, he brought an idea called Swachh Bharat. Swachh Bharat is Clean India. And there was a time in the world they were having what they call the cold water challenge or cold bucket challenge, something like that. People pour cold water on themselves, and then they put it on Facebook and all of that. You know, and when it got to India, guys said, well, I'm not interested in all of these things. What I'm interested in, I believe that India is one of the filthiest countries on earth, and we have to do something about it. 1.3 billion people living in India. And he started Swachh Bharat. He got on the street, he swept with the people. Let us see who will not join when the minister is sweeping, the prime minister is sweeping. And he got a lot of stars in Bollywood to join up to this effort, you know. And, you know, because, you know what, and then they also said that India is filthy. They also had a problem with open defecation. And they set out to build 75 million toilets. Now, not with loans, unlike what we do here, we run to World Bank. It's just so unfortunate, you know. So anyway, what he did was to talk to the people, communication. Talk to people and say, okay, madam, you know, Indians like a lot of jewelry. You have to sell some of your jewelry and put a bathroom in your house. Because before then, women will wait until 7:30 in the night before they went to the bush to eat themselves. Some of them will be kidnapped, some will be raped, some, you know, all sorts of things will happen to them. You can imagine, of course, even disease and all of that, occurrence and so on. And so, you know, that's it. And they have built almost 75 million. By next year or thereabout, or 2020, they intend to complete it 75. Now, imagine the way they have unleashed on their, what they have unleashed on their economy. 75 million toilets. Imagine even if you build each one at an average of 50,000 naira, in our own naira. And these are things in the villages, right? Meaning that you are not just talking about building something in the city. You're not talking about building a centenary city, a co-Atlantic, you know, which is, you know, that's the point. Nigeria would rather build a Atlantic city, centenary city. Nigeria would rather, you know, if you wanted to talk about building houses, they would rather, you know, come up and finance 4-bedroom duplexes, 5-bedroom duplexes. Nobody cares what happens to the small person.
Please,
and until then,
interject here, please. I want to draw attention to the population in northern Nigeria, and I'm being specific.
yeah. Well, yeah.
Go to Kano. There are millions of people. A huge population. Go to Katsina, there is a huge population. Economists, like you say, that those are huge potentials.
Absolutely.
I just made reference at the earlier part of this conversation that the very things that stopped Nigeria from independence in 1956, 54, 56, Sadano Sokoto insisted that northern Nigeria needed to catch up on education. Northern Nigeria needed to catch up on infrastructure. Northern Nigeria needed to catch up on organized governance. Because the West and the East had gone ahead. Up till 2019, Northern Nigeria is still battling with an uneducated population. But let me give you a specific example. Tafawa Balewa comes from Bauchi State. In other words, that part of the country, Bauchi, had experienced leadership at the highest level in this country. Ordinarily, there should be some measure of increment.
Oh, yeah.
But go to Tafawa Balewa's local government today. Leprosy is still pervasive. The yours is still pervasive. The Bauchi State government receives allocation every month. Bauchi State government officials drive very big cars. Bauchi State government have very big clothes, wardrobes. They go on pilgrimage, a holiness in service of Allah twice a year. Yet, a pauperized population surrounds them. And there doesn't seem to be this philosophical dimension to their reasoning to say, look, I have no pleasure in me until I have brought some succor to these people. Why does this kind of reasoning not drive our politics?
Well, you know, I mean, these are very philosophical and sociological questions that you're asking. In fact, it's a psychosocial issues, psychosocial thinking. You know, why are we the way we are? What's this about the Nigerian man usually? And of late, we've seen women who haven't done any better than men given the opportunity. You know, why is it that we're so into, you know, you want to show the world, you rather show your people that you are better than them and that you can oppress them. You don't see anything wrong in a million of them coming to your gate every morning looking for what to eat. And then you come and say, yeah, I'm the person. What is this thing we're feeding, this monster we're feeding in our bodies? We're feeding this monster that, you know, some sort of bottomless hole, like we keep putting things to it, it keeps absorbing, we're not happier for it. We acquire all the money in the world. Nigeria is the most wasteful country, the most misgoverned country in the world. A lot of our resources end up abroad. You know, these are the issues. Now, so, well, but let me say this, that, okay, fine, let's go back to the issue of, let me talk about Sardauna, because I read his autobiography, yes. And I kind of felt I knew the way he thinks, or he used to think, you know. And yes, he was fiercely northern. He was fiercely northern for his people.
Muslim.
He was fiercely Muslim. He wanted something that was kind of a paradox. He knew that the region was backward, okay, educationally. But he felt that they also needed to resist some undue Western influence, right?
I agree.
So they wanted to keep the religion the way it was, keep their dressing and all of that, but
the language.
But they also wanted to make progress. It was going to be a big paradox. I've also read as much or listened to as much from the current emir of Kano, where he said that, okay, fine, the British deliberately kept them at that level, which is true. Now, but let me tell you where the catch is. So the British deliberately kept the north of Nigeria away from, number one, Christianity, away from Western education. There was a push. And look, let me tell you what, faced with a Maxim gun, forget the resolve of your people. The British massacred millions of Fulani and Hausa warriors. They've killed them. The Maxim gun, look, they went into those wars, they put a few Southerners in the front, and maybe they were killed with bows and arrows, maybe 6 or 7 of them, with 1 or 2 or 3 lieutenants from the British Army. And nothing happened to those lieutenants. When then they brought the Maxim gun, and they could mow down as many as possible, and the people felt, wow, this guy has some magic. So if they wanted to roll Christianity throughout this country, they would have. But they felt, education. And if they wanted to roll education, they would have. But they felt, you know, this is real politics. And looking at it from that perspective, I don't think they did much that was wrong, because we also, as a people, used to have slaves amongst ourselves. We wage wars, we capture people as slaves, we enslave them, and nobody goes to his slave and asks him, oh God, what are you going to eat in the money? So I'm not one of those people who believe that, look, the British should have asked us, do we want to stay together, all of that stuff, hey, are you guys okay with Nigeria? Come on, let's get real. All right, so what happened in this instance was, you know, they did what they needed to do and all of that. However, so Sardauna wanted to see how they could begin to bridge the gap, which was going to be tough. And however, has anybody come with something that can refine Sardauna's dream?
So let me also tell you, no matter what, whatever anybody may say Sardauna did or he did not do, Sardauna also pursued education for northern Nigeria.
Absolutely.
I know that the Dansandao will pursue parents into the bush and arrest them because they did not send their wards to school.
What's the Dansandao? The name of
the local police.
Oh,
the local police.
Okay,
the local police.
There's one senator with that name.
Yes.
That was,
the local police.
Yes.
Oh, do you understand me?
Fantastic.
Arrest you and send you to prison for not sending your ward to school.
So
what are the governor doing today?
What we did not see is that same, or what we are not even seeing now. I'm sorry, even at the level of the presidency, and I'll tell you this, what we're not seeing now is that same level of urgency
and commitment.
That commitment that the Sardauna had, given the fact that this was also still going to be a paradox. So what they wanted to achieve is what a place like the UAE has achieved now, and Saudi is achieving. Many of those people in the UAE who are the real indigenes, you know, there are not more than 2 or 3 million people who are really indigenes, and of course they have about 20 million outsiders living with them, running their economy. So what they did was almost every one of them is educated. Ivy League education, right? And then they put themselves in security services and so on they stay back, they organize their society. Then the Indians come and do the business. Then the Pakistanis come and do the services. And so on and so forth. Then the Filipinos
society is moving.
You know, society is moving. And then the rest of us go there and spend our money. You know, so that's the way they organize society. So that was what he wanted to achieve, which is not being achieved. However, let me tell you 2 things. Number one is that, of course, down to the level of the presidency today, that problem is not appreciated or anything is being done about that problem. Because I remember when the president was being interviewed by Kadaria Ahmed in this last debate that they had, one of the young guys from the north stood up. His name is Usman Abaka Jau. I took notice of that. I even went online, searched for, I think it's a lawyer, a young chap, you know. who also benefited from the what the system they're running. And he said, sir, you know, we've got a big problem with this Almajiri thing right now, and I believe you're the one that can solve it. And I want to tell you that a lot of us up north are not comfortable with what's going on. And, you know, he was saying and asking the president. The president said, well, was he asking? And he said, Kadari had to keep repeating Almajiri, Almajiri, Almajiri. Even the vice president had to chip in Almajiri. And then, of course, before the president now took down and all, I could see from his body language that he doesn't believe there's a problem that needs to go. And of course, when he would answer, what he said was, you know, that it's a problem for the local governments to fix. Now, when you have 13.2 million children all over Nigeria, walking all over the space, and I must tell you, for my campaign and my moving around, I also found out that our problem is not limited to that 13.2 million. But that in a lot of the public schools, especially up north, nobody was getting taught at all. I mean that you will see the class, the children are there. Usually if you went there today during school hours, they close very early as well. There's a different culture with education up north. I think they close at 1 and go to work in the farm or something. But while they're there between 10 or 10:30, because they get to school also quite late, between 10 and 1, most of the time they're just on this field socializing. If those children pick up anything, maybe some of them get curious. And these are children that are very, very eager to learn. They are extremely eager to learn, but they're not being taught. There are no teachers to teach them. The governors don't care. As a matter of fact, the payment, you know, of course, the governors pay the teachers and so on. I can begin to see that a lot of the payment, if you tell me you're paying 3 billion to teachers, 1 billion is coming to their pockets. So they prefer not to employ the teachers so that they wouldn't have to shell out the money. And I said, when I came back from that campaign, I knew that, of course, Buhari would win. Yeah, I knew he would win. Because those people, there's this kind of psychology, they really believe in him and Gaskia and all that stuff, you know. But also, I found out that that was the biggest problem we need to deal with in this country, if this country will continue to be won. However, of course, looking at the option of not being one is too expensive. So I would want Nigeria to remain one.
I would not go for that.
Exactly.
I would think along that line.
I would want Nigeria to remain one. But if you must, you cannot be manufacturing ignorant minds by the tens of millions. I could see like it was a factory, all right? A factory for the manufacture of ignorance. If the leaders and elites of those regions, wherever they may be, whether in government or out of government, do not see the need for an emergency or anything that's bigger than an emergency to be declared, and for a concentration of their resources on building the minds of the young people today, of the child. I saw those children, I felt that these children were innocent. They don't deserve this. I'm sending my children to private school and all of that stuff. These children don't deserve what's going on today. I went to the east. I went as far as Igbere. When I got to Igbere, I saw one school. I went in there, you know, I saw even the headmaster was sitting down outside and so on. You know, I went in the class. So I could see, okay, this was also a village school. Yes, the children had a board they were being taught. I went to Bumacho, I went to Shaki, I went into schools as well. These children don't have their parents who are farmers, you know, they came to school, they weren't as rough and as neglected as the children I saw in the north, they were being taught. In the southwest and the southeast, what I saw was, okay, fine. In some instances, they didn't have enough teachers, right? They didn't have enough teachers. Maybe they had shortages and all that. You know, the so-called empire thing is also a big joke because people they are posted to be teachers, but they don't have any interest in being teachers. So there has to be a rethink of that process. So what they do is they split the money with the headmaster or with the principal. They split the money and they, okay, I got 30,000 has come in for you. Okay, take 15. The headmaster takes 15. You know what I'm saying? So it's anything. Like I wrote an article when I came back. I said this is a United Nations issue, and by God's grace, I will take this issue to the United Nations. It's beyond us now. The decades of neglect, decades of irresponsibility, decades of greed, decades of sheer wickedness on the part of the elites of this country. And again, it's now, let me also let you know that it is no longer a northern affair. This thing, you know, bad money attracts bad money. This same thing is attracting these bad things in the south. That the same leaders in the south as well are beginning to slack out, not caring about quality, about anything. Everybody is running for this money. There's this huge rat race that's going on in this country. Nobody is thinking about lifting up the Nigerian people so that they may be higher. And that's why you steal the money of this country, you go abroad, you are next to nothing. Sometimes they mess you up right there at the airport. I've been there before in Heathrow Airport. Some guy is there saying, yes, I'm the chairman of the committee. We are here for this. And the woman, the little girl, the little lady that was the immigration said, sir, please take your finger out of my face. Take your finger out of my face. I don't care whether you are chairman of whatever committee in the so-called House of Representatives. We are plowing the depths of ignominy as a people. We are devaluing ourselves.
I want us to solve this problem.
Una well done. Oh. We don't carry come again for this program, Corruption Tori, for where we dey shine light put for different corruption issues where they happen for this country. My name na Ufoma Eguria say, una welcome. Last week, we be check as our leaders been they look the matter of corruption where they happen for the oil industry, especially through we NNPC. We can't knock advice say, I beg make we vote well. Sake of this corruption issue, they very serious and it needs serious action. Now we come reason am say, it get plenty people we no even know wetin corruption be, wetin it cover, and how it they take affect us. So this Sunday, we go look as country people, they take the reason corruption. How una they see corruption? How you they look corruption? Wetin you they look say corruption be? Shey na the public officer go thief money for inside public account, na that time corruption don't happen. Our report today go check for answers from we country people. Check how they take the look this matter. From the different reports where international organizations do on corruption for different countries around the world, them don't see say Nigeria na very corrupt country. The latest one where Transparency International do on top how them see corruption for 2017, Nigeria now be number 148 for inside the 180 countries where them look for that report. Many country people just they look this corruption we don't turn to serious problem. They block development for this country. Like say now only politicians where they thief money come up for with treasury now in they cost the corruption. But now only that won't be corruption.
Corruption is multifaceted, although we make the mistake of reducing it to simply stealing naira and kobo. And I think you remember the uproar about a former president who talked about difference between corruption and stealing. Well, if you look deeply, you will know that corruption is not just about stealing alone. There will be issues about nepotism that is embedded in corruption, issues of denying people access to facilities or where they should occupy based on merit. And so it's even beyond legalism. There are some moral components of corruption. Because if you look up the dictionary meaning, it's not just about that. It almost talks about putrefaction, trying to not get things done at the level or at the status where they're supposed to be done, just reducing the levels.
When you use your public position for private gain, then that is corruption. But it manifests in different ways. It could be financial corruption when you use your position to take companies' resources or government resources, or it could be political corruption when you rig yourself into power, or it could be even nepotism when you use your office to benefit your family members, friends, and cronies.
It's a cancer, but we've lived with it for so long. It's bad. It defeats everything from merits to all the lofty values a nation would have loved to live by. So cancer is really the cancer corruption is really bad for our society, our government, and everything that a nation that wants to be great will stand for.
For the yarn wey dem dey talk since January 15, 1966, when we military first used by force collect government of this country, military don dey talk say na too much corruption na im make dem vex come take over chook hand for politics. For 1966, Major Kaduna Nzeogwu with im co-majors dem talk say na all these public officers, most especially the ministers, wey dey collect 10% of any contract money, na im join dey thief all the money for this country. For December 1983, Muhammadu Buhari, wey be Major General that time, talk say na election wey dem dey rig anyhow and thief of country money na im make am collect government by force from Alhaji Shehu Shagari, wey bin win election that time.
The conduct of the 1983 elections dashed that hope, since as I said before on another occasion, that election could be anything but free and fair. The Nigerian people were therefore limbered with a government whose suspect massive victory at the polls lulled it into a state of complacency. The planless, downright incompetence and irresponsibility which characterized the previous 4 years continued. Gentlemen of the press, the Nigerian armed forces could not stand idly by while this country was drifting towards a dangerous state of political and economic collapse through the continued ineptitude and insensitiveness of a political leadership who were apparently unwilling to change. It had a duty to intervene to clean up the economic mess and set this country once again on the path of sanity.
E clear say corruption for this country no be today problem, and all the government wey we don dey get, whether na military or na civilian, all of them dey point corruption as big problem wey dem just dey promise to fight, but e never still work as corruption still dey spread go everywhere, dey chop we country go.
It doesn't make sense in Nigeria not to engage in corruption because there's really no sanction. What has happened in Nigeria is that there appears to be complete breakdown of values, and for many public officers, when they go to work, if work is good, is how much money they were able to make. And it wasn't helped by the system, because the system sort of began to heroize corrupt people. You see two people work in public service, one retire poor and the other retire rich as a result of corruption. The one that retire rich is given chieftaincy title, is honored in society, and the one that retire poor dies of hunger before the children. The children of such people are always bitter with society, and when they have any opportunity, they engage in corruptible transactions.
If only our leaders that we entrust, they can actually help us by doing those basic things they ought to do, not being self-centered. They take their children, they school abroad, medicals, they go abroad. Now they leave those basic amenities down here suffering. Now, if all those things are well set, corruption will stop.
The problem there is our mindsets need to change as Nigerians, because people have really gone deeply into corruption itself. If you go to some people, they will tell you corruption is part of the system. That's what people say, But the moment we begin to know that we need to take away corruption, I think that's a step to making this country a better place.
Buhari cannot stop corruption. He will just try his possible, but no anybody can stop corruption in this country. It's in our blood. We have introduced it as a school. So to stop corruption in Nigeria, there's nobody can stop corruption in this country. We are good in corrupt, both Muslim, Christian, church, mosque. Anywhere, even you're in your house.
Some country people don't argue say e get two things where they help spread corruption for this with Nigeria. One of them na the matter of sharing money wey no balance at all. As it be now, some states they get past some other states, and not be saying na them they generate the revenue pass. This one now no dey help accountability at all for government.
The overthrow of a constitutional order in a way and manner not cognizable by that constitutional order was also a very huge corrupting influence. So laws were no longer made after a lot of debates in parliament. Somebody wakes up with little or no education or verifiable academic qualifications, he promulgates a decree which has immediate effect. And sometimes they want to play God by having it applied retroactively. And so there were no more the norms of discourse, the norms of consensus building, the norms of ensuring that everybody is carried along in the lawmaking and governance scenario. It was just the head of state and the Supreme Military Council. Sometimes he doesn't need to consult them. A decree is enacted. And that arbitrariness came down to the state level, even in state creation, because during the regions, the only region that was created was the Midwest region, and there was a lot of give and take. But thereafter, everything became arbitrary. You could no longer question the head of state. You could no longer question the military governors. Questioning them was unlike committing treason, an offense for which you could be detained without any court being in a position to say that you've been wrongly detained. So they may even made the federal military government supremacy of powers decree. So everything became arbitrary.
The second thing where some country people talk say they cause corruption. Now with constitution, where they talk say e open road for this quota system and federal character, where they make people wey no merit position to they get them, sake of the state where they come from. This one they reduce the role of merit for we national matter.
I think one thing we must realize is that Nigeria is a heterogeneous society. And for every heterogeneous society, the best form of government is a federal system. And the federal system, most federal systems allow for the kind of federal character principle. The greatest problem is implementation of the federal character principle. First is that if you say that the federal character principle is that there should be no concentration of some positions in some parts of the country, then it does not stop you from looking for the best brains in each of those areas. That is number one. Number two, it does not stop you from having a minimum standard. So, because it doesn't make sense to me that for you to enter the same school, somebody from Delta State scores 200 and is not admitted, and somebody from another state scores 2 and is admitted. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So we need to look at the implementation and the abuse of the federal character principle rather than the underlying philosophical basis that brings forward the principle.
It no matter at all which side country people dey on this matter of corruption. All of us shall agree say corruption no dey favor with development for this country. It dey very bad and it need to stop if we go move forward for Nigeria. So una don see say plenty things joy for inside this corruption pass to say person go thief national money. We don't took eye for the different parts where corruption fit to show you our face. Next week we go come check wetin corruption they do us for this country and how we go fit to hold am before it destroy us pata. My name na Ufoma Egoria say till reach next week Sunday when I go see you again. Bye bye.